afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to our webinar on cycling cities, how to get more people to cycle. I'm Katharina Krell. I'm Thematic Expert in charge of the topic low carbon economy of the Interreg Europe Policy Learning Platform, and I'm your main moderator for this afternoon. And I have the pleasure to have with me Rose Power from the Southern Regional Assembly in Ireland, who will be my co-moderator.
Good afternoon, everyone. I hope you enjoy the webinar today.
So upfront, a few words of housekeeping. As usual, we are recording this webinar. The recordings will be available along with all the presentations that we're showing you, and we will send you a follow-up email with a link tomorrow. So you'll have that straight away and you can share it with whoever is interested in it. A few words about the webinar control panel that you have on the right side of your screen. You can not interact by speaking with the speakers, but the audience can ask questions through the chat function. And my colleague Marco is taking the content questions. My colleague Lotte is helping everybody with technical issues. You can also check out the handout section where we post interesting documents for you as we go through the webinar from documents that the speakers refer to. So about the audience, we're having over 390 people registered again. So this is really a very successful series of webinars. So thank you all for joining, and thank you for the many who are joining us for the third time already. Shortly, two slides about who we are. We are the Interreg Europe program, whose projects foster interregional cooperation for better policy making, and which is open to all the European regions. It covers 4 thematic areas, among which low carbon economy is the one where you find energy and mobility projects. We also have environment and resource efficiency, where you find some projects related to mobility. And in this current program, there are 19 interregional cooperation projects that focus on cycling and active modes of mobility. And so with an average of 8 partners per project, that is about 150 regions and cities that are involved in cycling and active mobility projects. So you can imagine inside of these consortia, there's a host of knowledge. Now, this is where the policy learning platform is coming in, whose job is really to open up the knowledge and the experiences gained within the individual project consortia and bring it to the larger public so that it can be shared and can inspire other regions from throughout Europe. So the policy learning platform does this through a set of services that is delivered through a portal and through thematic experts like myself, and declined along the 4 thematic areas of the program. These services include a knowledge hub where you can find shorter and longer publications, on-demand individual expert support through a help desk and also through a 2-day peer review service, individual for cities and regions, that is currently also available as an online peer review. We serve our community of over 18,000 people with events and networking, like today's webinar. And last but not least, there is a very large database of good practices. So the aim of today's webinar then is again to provide inspiration and solutions to mobility professionals on how to transform a city into a cycling city. This is the 3rd webinar on this topic. We have tackled strategic planning for cycling and how cycling deserves its own strategy. Last week, we focused on infrastructure and how important it is for cities to offer a coherent, safe and attractive cycling network, along with sufficient and safe parking facilities for bikes, especially at the interconnection with public transport. And the recordings of these 2 are already available, and you can check out the link in the chat. Now, today, we focus on getting people ready to bike more. When a city is ready to accommodate cyclists because it has invested in infrastructure, many people will naturally turn to more cycling or to start cycling for the first time, just because the designated safe space is there. But there's certainly a larger part of the population that will need to be educated, trained, nudged, or incentivized or disincentivized to change their behavior, to drop the car in favor of the bike. And this webinar will show the successful measures that have led to such behavior change. Now, behavior change measures are directed to people, and different people have different motivations, and you can group people and their motivations together. So there are certainly overall awareness raising programs, but we have decided to look at measures by specific target group. And I would like to ask the audience, which target group do you believe is easiest to convince to cycle more? And you can select, you can tick 2 of the boxes. Is it kids up to age 10, school kids, or school kids 11 to 18? Is it commuters, working adults? Or is it maybe adults who have never cycled before? Or do you see senior citizens as the target group that is easiest to convince to cycle more? Our policymakers always want to maximize the impact of their measures. And of course, the most interesting is if you can change the behavior of a regular traveler. So regular travel to school, regular travel to work. These are really, really the high impact measures. So it's much more important to change a regular travel behavior than the occasional travel on the weekend. Let's see the results of the poll. Okay, so kids, you're betting on our future. 6 to 10 or 11 to 18, roughly 60% each. Okay, equally important, followed by commuters. Okay, so this is also the way that we have built our agenda. We are having 2 presentations that focus on schools, 1 on commuters, and then there's 1 on adults, cycling beginners, essentially. And this is the moment to introduce our speakers as well. Please turn on your cameras and show your faces to our audience. Okay. So we're starting with a keynote from Albert Palomo on the experiences of the School Chance project. Albert is joining us from the regional government of Catalonia. Hello, Albert.
Hello. Thank you for inviting me to participate.
It's a pleasure to have you. After your introductory keynote, we will hear 3 shorter good practice pitches focused on just 1 good practice. We will hear Steve Coucheman, who's here from the canton of Zurich, to talk about the bike training at schools. Hi, Steve.
Hi, everybody. It's a pleasure.
Cool to have you. We will have Maria José Rojo, who's joining us from Polis and is speaking about influencing employees' mobility behavior. Hi there.
Hi, everyone.
And last but not least, we're having Tom Geens here from ProVelo, a Brussels-based NGO, is talking about bike training for adults who are cycling beginners. Hi, Tom.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Wonderful. So at the end, we'll have a panel discussion where we take questions from the audience, and then we will wrap up. Hopefully everybody keeps to their time, and therefore so am I. And I'm handing over to Albert. Everybody else can switch off their cameras. Albert, the floor is yours for your keynote, please.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so first of all, thank you, and let me first introduce you to the School Chance project that is led by the Girona City Council and with the participation of the cities of Reggio Emilia, Utrecht, Dansk, Gadel, and Brasov, and the region of Catalonia, of course. The School Chance objective is to incorporate the autonomous, sustainable, safe, and healthy mobility of school children transversally into the regional and local policies of the participating territories. So School Chance deals with all modes of sustainable mobility, but I'm only going to focus on bike. As you know, Europe and its cities are very diverse and with very different contexts. In general, northern cities with more dispersed urban planning are more bike-friendly than southern cities, which are denser and more walk-friendly. While, for example, in Utrecht, the bicycle is the main way to access schools, even in a greater proportion than general mobility, in Girona, a medium city of 100,000 inhabitants, mobility on foot is the main one. The use of bike is very small, and the car has a high quota, and the objective is to reduce it in favor of bike. During the schoolchildren project, we make a survey campaign in Catalonia in different schools and institutes. And we observe how bicycles have a greater growth potential among primary school students. They wish they could go to school in a greater proportion by bike. At this age, they see it as a funny way to get around, and that must be used to promote these habits towards adulthood. In higher school, this proportion decreases because young people begin to think about in motorized mobility. Motorcycles appear in their mind, and for this reason, I insist it is important to start working on mobility by bicycle from primary school. So, for me, the key points to change mobility behavior towards bike are to do a multidisciplinary approach and to involve all different stakeholders at local and at regional level. Education, mobility, and environment areas of city councils and regions, the whole school community, like principals, teachers, workers, students, and parents, for example. No? Also, to internalize safe and sustainable mobility in the educational programs of the schools. It's very important also to design and establish safe and recognizable school environments. Perception matters, and not only for children, especially for parents, and to provide safe parking, bike parking facilities at the schools for staff and students. It's very important also to carry out promotion and awareness campaigns, address it and involving all the stakeholders I mentioned before, and to reverse some false myths about bike mobility, like it's unsafe or that the weather condition affects. And finally, to integrate all these aspects on regional key policies. I will show now some examples. For us, a good practice of our partners in Reggio Emilia, in the city of Reggio Emilia in Italy, that we consider very relevant is the figure of the mobility coordinator at the schools. That is a teaching staff member that links schools, families, students, and the city council by acting as an interlocutor for the demands and problems related to mobility and collecting and proposing initiatives related to traffic education and sustainability to other teachers, among other functions. It is also important to establish a local mobility network, coordinators network, as an instrument to share experiences between different schools and to help city councils to address and get feedback of their policies. During our study visit to the city of Utrecht, we observed how bicycle is integrated into the DNA of its inhabitants. Traffic parks have included bicycles with their due prominence for decades, and that is reflected in the behavior and respect of children and adults toward bikes. However, this is not currently the case in many traffic parks in other territories. Continuing in the Netherlands, theoretical and practical knowledge about mobility by bicycle is perfectly integrated into the educational programs of schools. They start their lessons at 8 years old, and at 12 years old, they are able to take and pass a practical exam in a real traffic situation. My colleague Steve will talk more about these issues later. So, students should be confident in their ability to ride a bike, and so should parents. It doesn't matter what the students want to do if their parents don't allow them to ride a bike to go to school. There are many examples of methodologies for creating safe and recognizable school environments. In Catalonia, for example, many city councils require a previous work to the school to integrate aspects of road safety and sustainability in their activities, and to work with the students and families in the measure of transformation of the school environment before doing any work of urbanization. I would also like to highlight the Strada Scolastica of Reggio Emilia. There, volunteers from students' families collaborate in the temporary closure of the streets in the hours of entry and exit of the students. So it's not only about making physical changes in the environment, but involving the entire educational community in this process. So it is obvious that if we want students and workers to ride a bike to school, we must offer a safe and adequate space to store them. Educational centers, especially those of new construction, should provide these spaces. In existing centers, especially in dense urban areas, it is very difficult to create these spaces if they don't have been planned before. Also, bicycle parks must be conveniently separated from children's playing areas. This is not always possible, and it's a barrier to its installation in some schools. There are many existing campaigns and activities that can be carried out in schools to promote and raise awareness about the use of bikes. I would like to highlight the following relevant aspects that are very important to me. They may be addressed both to students and parents. The school staff should be the first to give example, not always happens. And gamification really works, like the skate game activity or the Cycling May campaign in dance, which is being replicated successfully in many other cities in Poland. It's cold, it's raining, it's sunny. These are excuses, excuses, and excuses to use the bike. For example, in Gavel, a cycling town, in winter users drop a lot because of the snow, but they improve the maintenance of bike lines and encourage people to try it. And the results were very positive in this city. In southern countries, we complain about the heat, but the schools could provide access to changing rooms and showers for workers and students if they need it. So there are options to do it.
2 minutes.
Okay, this is the last one then. I'm on time. So thanks to the School Change project and the drafting of the School Mobility Action Plan, the government of Catalonia has internalized many of the measures that I have just explained to you in its mobility and educational policies. This project has influenced, by example, the national guidelines for mobility. This means, for example, that all the future SUMPs in the cities should integrate these new school mobility strategies. Also, the National Strategy for Bikes 2025 includes actions to develop this school mobility action plan. So, changing the behavior of a society requires time, and it's essential to start at the base, school children. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Albert. That was really informative and very interesting, and definitely I agree with you. If you start young, you have the future cyclists for the next 30, 40, 50 years.
Yeah.
Really interesting keynote address there. It's very similar actually to a student-led initiative we have here in Ireland called the Green Schools Travel Programme. And they do a lot of similar things in Ireland in relation to awareness and training and support for the schools and the community. They have a 7-step approach that they use there, and their motto is to start it in the classroom, extended to the school and the teachers and the workers there, and ultimately to the community. So it's actually really interesting to see the comparisons to what you presented here this afternoon. We've put a link to that other good practice, the Green Schools Travel Programme, into our chat. I thought what was also interesting there as well, you showed a very colourful, safe school environment. And Ireland introduced its first safe school environment only last year for one of our schools in Dublin. And definitely, I think, you know, because of the colours around the school, it definitely is a recognisable safe zone. And I think that's very important, where our young students and pupils and kids are going to school, to allow them to have that safety in or around the school premises. And hopefully, we're hoping in Ireland that, you know, we'll be able to encourage more and more schools to actually introduce that. But Albert, thank you very much. It was very, very interesting today. I'm sure all of our attendees will find the information that you gave them very, very useful, and we really appreciate you taking the time. So I'll hand you back now to Katharina.
Yes. Thank you, Rose. And Albert, congratulations also for your successful work in integrating the lessons into your policy making, into your policy documents, into your strategies. This is the real achievement. I mean, we're happy that Interreg can organize a knowledge exchange, but then you have to take it up. And I think you have expertly shown how this has been done. This is bravo. So thank you for that. And let's dive a little bit more into the practice of training kids. Albert, you can switch off. I would like to call Steve Coucheman from the bike traffic office of the canton of Zurich to come online. Steve, certainly what many countries can only dream of. Your region, I don't know if all Switzerland, but at least the canton of Zurich has implemented a very thorough bike training. Let us hear all about it, please. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Hello, everybody. My name is Steve Coucheman. I'm the head of the bike promotion of the canton of Zurich, and I'm pleased to be able to present the Veloschule, a bike school education campaign today. But before I start, I'd like to show you who we are and what we do. The aim of the program we are following is to increase the proportion of bikes in traffic as whole. The focus is very much on everyday cycling, traffic, in example, specific journeys on the way to work, school, or shopping. And now the question, why do we need the Veloschule campaign? Fewer and fewer children are riding bikes, at least over here in Switzerland in the canton of Zurich. This was an important finding from a survey on cycling in school traffic. We, along with the traffic instructors of the cantonal police, want to take appropriate measures. Our shared objective: children and young people should cycle more safely and especially more often. They should have fun. And the plan we've got is a Veloschule that gets things moving, sparking enjoyment and enthusiasm for cycling. And what's so special about this Veloschule? It's an education campaign especially developed for the kids, and the instructors of the cantonal police are in school, and they get involved and teach the students how it works with the bicycle. Benny Blitz and Tina Turbo, these are two small characters we developed, are helping children and young people to learn. They communicate the expertise in a playful, sometimes quirky way, but always on an equal footing. The children get teaching materials which are especially tailored to their needs. The police expertise has been included into comics, animations, workbooks, and so on. And one big advantage is after the lesson with the police, it doesn't stop right then. The training can be continued using the teaching materials or online at veloschule.ch. Unfortunately, this platform provides all information only in German. But even if it's only in German, it's worth to watch it or to have a look on it, because it's very, very colorful. It's reduced to the relevant information, and most of the time it works as well without the spoken language. The enjoyment of and the enthusiasm for cycling is key if we want children to cycle more and on an everyday basis. As well, it's helpful to encourage their parents to go on a bike ride together. The varied content of the Veloschule education campaign is also worth reading and experiencing for adults, not only for children. The lesson design. As I said, the police officer goes to school and he is always center stage. And the characters, Benny Blitz and Tina Turbo, help him with his work. We have as well developed several materials which can be used as well in classroom, as well outside or on the bike. Without the massive commitment of the members of the cantonal police, the cycle training would not be much different to normal school lessons. But the children are excited to have a uniformed police officer coming to school, and they get involved into the lesson thanks to the varied teaching materials and resources. The teaching materials. We start at the 2nd grade. The children know the equipment they need for their bike. The teaching material for the 2nd grade take the form of a comic. There are also elements, stickers, children can get involved in to help them understand the content on a multidimensional basis. On the 3rd grade, the police officer works with PowerPoint presentations and handouts. As well, we have some workbooks that the pupils can work together with him in the class. The children learn the important traffic signals for cycling and how to act accordingly. On the 4th grade, the children learn how to turn left properly on their bikes. They learn as well the right-of-way rules. 5th grade, the children practice cycling and especially applying theory to practice. They are going on the road together with the police officer. They receive some headset and are following him on the road, and sometimes they have to do their maneuvers as well, and the police officer is watching them and giving some advices. And in the 6th grade, they reinforce what they have learned, and or they take a cycling proficiency test. Unfortunately, this is not happening in all communes over here in the canton of Zurich, but most of them are doing the cycling proficiency test. What we created as well for the students to have the possibility to train is bike courses in schoolyards. Currently, we have 82 courses in the canton of Zurich, and on a map on veloschule.ch, you are able to see which one of these courses is the closest to the place you live. A bike course consists of lines painted on the ground in schoolyards to mirror road markings. The course offers children the opportunity to practice riding and to get to know the road signs in a fun way and especially in a safe place. Nothing can happen over there. I mentioned it several times. This web platform, we call it Veloschule, contains as well 6 explanatory videos with the different stations of the course I showed you before. On each course, you have a sign with a QR code on, and if you're using your smartphone, you get directly to these explanatory videos and get involved into the content, and you see how to do the course properly. Additional to that, we have also created another 8 animations on traffic road situations. It's worth to watch them, as I already said. And last year, we created something new. We call it quiz time. Veloschule quiz time is a very attractive way to figure out if the kids or even their parents did understand how it works to cycle correctly and how to get proper through the streets and know the signals on the streets as well. Additional to that, we have the possibility after a lesson at school to give some homework, especially regarding the content the police officer has talking to the kids. And as well, we have the possibility to use this platform on events when we get in touch with the cycling community all over the canton of Zurich. The cycling proficiency test route is...
Your time's up.
Okay. I'm pretty much done. On this slide, you will see all we've done. It's quite a lot, and it's worth to watch it. Thank you very much.
Oh, wow. Okay. So on the summary slide, were there still any lessons? No, this is just a summary of what you have said. Fine. Great. Thank you, Steve. That was really, really interesting. Have you done a cycling test when you were a kid?
I did as well, yeah. I'm coming from Wetzikon, where we have the first Veloschule parkour waymarked, and I think it was 28 years ago when I have done this test as well. Yeah.
I have not done a test, but I received training on a safe place on a big parking with marked streets by the local police in my village. Yes. So I come from Germany. We don't have programs systematically like you have. Steve, is this program something's only in the canton of Zurich, or is this all over Switzerland?
It's only related to the canton of Zurich at the moment, yeah. But these traffic instructors, as I already mentioned, there are as well in other cantons, but sometimes you have 1 or 2 of them, and in the canton of Zurich we have 19. And due to that, all of them have regions they are taking care of and are going to school. But actually it's the first time we have something in Switzerland, and we are in discussion to roll out it nationwide. But yeah, it's all about the question of resources, finances, and so on. Other cantons are already asking us if we can provide them our teaching material. And then we said, of course you can have it. We are not able to do some adaptation or something like that. But beside that, they can have it, and some of them are using it.
It's very friendly, your teaching material. I checked it out. Would you also be ready to share it with regions beyond Switzerland?
Actually, yes. It's always a question about copyrights and such kind of things, but it's worth to be shared, yeah.
That's great. We have also in the Netherlands compulsory training for everybody, and in Austria, for instance, it's optional and it's organized by state-certified bicycle trainers. I paste the link in the chat. Marco, I think you have a question for the audience, for Steve.
Yes, of course. So our audience is asking if you have special incentives for police officers to take part in your initiative, and in general, how the initiative is funded.
As I already said, I'm responsible for the bike promotion of the canton of Zurich, and this is actually quite a huge program with several measurements, and it has a durability from 10 years, and according to that, there was also a certain amount of money available for certain measurements, and the police officers are as well from the canton of Zurich, as I am working for, and it's part of their, or it was already part of their job, but unfortunately they didn't have any education materials or such kind of things. Sometimes they used to have their own PowerPoint presentations, but all of these 19 instructors did have severals, and we streamlined all that, and we were thinking what would be helpful for them to talk on a proper basis with the kids, because if you're using content which is developed for adults, it won't work with the children. It needs to be colorful. It needs to be adapted on their level, on their grade actually. In the second grade, they won't be able to read much. So we thought, we need to put the content inside the pictures, inside the comic. And like that, they are able to get involved. Yeah.
Yeah, so the region essentially helped its municipalities not to reinvent the wheel. That's a good intervention. Okay, I would like to thank you, Steve, and introduce our next speaker, Maria José Rojo. Please turn on your camera and your mic. You're joining us from Polis, and you're project manager and coordinator for active travel and health. And you're going to tell us about changing the commuting behavior of employees. The floor is yours for 8 minutes.
Okay, thank you very much. I hope you can all see my screen now.
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you. So today, well, I will speak about the shift towards sustainable mobility behavior of another important target group, which is commuters. Commuting trips frequently represent an important portion of trips in the cities and regions, which makes employers and employees a group with high potential for change. For this reason, it is important to have a good understanding of commuters' needs and mobility behavior, especially regarding vulnerable groups. COVID-19 pandemic has showed many citizens to experience their cities as cyclists like never before, with more space, cleaner air, and less noise and pollution. And many people have also started cycling as a means of transport for the daily commute. This experience has the potential to bring lasting impact in our mobility behavior. With regards to cycling commuters, there are several aspects to take into account, some related to infrastructure, as it was mentioned before, so the importance of high quality routes on commuter corridors, of safe bicycle parking facilities near public transport and workplaces, and also facilities at work such as showers, lockers, etc. There are other aspects related to the vehicles, for example, the potential of e-bikes to cover longer distances more quickly, and also some soft measures can also be very helpful, like mobility expert advice, promotions information, and today I will focus on the behavioral aspects to encourage sustainable commuting. So Zuid-Limburg-Bereikbaar's employers approach is a regional tool for influencing employees' mobility behavior as a way of enhancing involvement and participation in a direct way on personal travel. Instead of offering mobility via road infrastructure or public transport, with this measure, people are offered advice and choices on their own mobility. It raises awareness among employees and offers them new mobility opportunities. This approach is part of the regional SUMP to stimulate the mobility, cycling, and public transport. So how does it work? A mobility broker visits the employers of bigger companies in the region and makes an analysis of the transport situation of employees regarding geographic, socioeconomic, and mobility aspects, which is the mobility scan. The broker then offers tailored alternatives for car travel, and the employers can offer the alternatives to the employees. The employers can use tax benefits or compensation of costs for employees using bikes or public transport. And then an annual impact assessment takes place to track the evolution of commuting behavior. The employer's approach focuses on the benefits that employers can obtain. For example, improving the vitality and health of employees, and this way also possibly reducing absenteeism, but also possibly reducing the need for parking spaces and also CO2 emissions. So this approach looks at a wide array of products. Some of them are to encourage the use of bicycles. For example, they discover the e-bike and discover the cargo bike, which is mainly like a trial period free of charge for employees, so they can try these vehicles. There are other products for the promotion of public transport, a free trial of public transport, also possibly in combination with folding bikes for last mile or for free park and ride for employees who live further away. And also there are some other tailor-made solutions, for example, the scans to see the potential benefits of applying flexible working schedules or teleworking policies. The employer approach was implemented in South Limburg in the Netherlands. The institutions involved were Parkstad Limburg, the municipality of Heerlen, and Zuid-Limburg-Bereikbaar, and the results were quite positive. 60% of the reached employees participated in the pilot deals. 50% of the visited employees changed at least one day a week their travel behavior in a more sustainable way, and the number of drivers who regularly leave their cars for commuting increased by 32%. So the innovative aspect of this practice is the direct tailored made offers on using public transport and e-bicycles, for example. And for this reason, this measure is transferable and adaptable to other contexts. But we have to take into account that a prerequisite for this is the willingness of companies to cooperate in this approach. So looking at the impacts of COVID and some of them, how they can affect also commuting behavior, we see there's a raised awareness around cycling as a suitable transport option and the potential for behavior change. Also, the pandemic has showed the benefits of having a SUMP because many cities and regions could fast track the measures that were already planned, and also the need for infrastructure improvement. And of course, it has had a very powerful impact in our work life because, well, many of us have had to adapt to teleworking, which is now the new norm. And of course, in public transport, it has had a negative impact due to the loss of trust in these means of transport. So when looking at the alternatives to car-dependent commuting, recently there are several measures and initiatives that can transform as well commuting patterns. The new European cycling industry forecasts show huge growth in bike and e-bike sales. Promoting the use of bicycles and e-bikes for commuting purposes can not only be an alternative to the use of private cars, it can also limit the exposure of commuters to mass mobility means when needed. Some programs are also exploring the potential of mass in the working context, and other regions are also exploring other policies related to workplaces and to work. For example, Milan has announced its approach to have flexible working schedules and as well to reallocate working spaces for public administration workers in order to minimize the congestion in peak hours. So there are currently a number of initiatives and trends transforming commuting patterns, and there is momentum to influence mobility behavior towards more sustainable commuting options. And in a new normal world, mobility solutions must tackle critical aspects such as ensuring safe, in terms of health, commuting. And I'm finished with my presentation, and I'm open as well to questions. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much, Maria José. That was very, very interesting. We don't see too many examples whereby we've managed to influence employers' behaviour when it comes to sustainable transport. I think it's really, really interesting and some amazing results that you've shown there, particularly for us here in Ireland, where there's definitely an over-reliance on private car for commuters. We have one example in Ireland that we've seen with Limerick Smarter Travel, where they have engaged with employers who employ in excess of 250 employees, and they're seeking to try and influence the behaviour of the commuters in that in those employers. And they took a similar approach. There's some soft measures and hard measures there. And what they do is, in order to create some real lasting effect, they monitor the measures that have been put in place over a 5-year period, so that they get a long-term and permanent behaviour change. But I think it's really, really interesting, and I think you mentioned it as well. What we found as part of that particular good practice was that the employers were motivated, not necessarily on the sustainable travel side of things, but they were definitely motivated in getting their staff more active and more healthy, and potentially to have a significant impact on the level of absenteeism in the workplace, which costs them significant amount of money. So it's really interesting to see the comparison there. I think also one of the other interesting points that you brought out was the impact of COVID. And looking at wider measures in relation to how we manage that, the staggered and flexible working times, you know, the remote working. I know in Ireland a decision has recently been made whereby we're, for the first time ever, bringing in a policy on remote working, whereby everyone will have the right to apply for remote working, and in addition they're seeking to mandate that 20% of public sector workers will be working remotely. So that was only introduced in the last month. So it's very interesting to see that similar aspects to your good practice today. So thank you very much. Very, very interesting. So I'll hand you over to Marco if he has some questions for you.
Yes, we have one, for example, about the mobility advice to employees. So is it paid by enterprises or by the government? Are there incentives, public incentives available for companies, for example?
As far as I know, the government needs a budget, which is mainly to pay for this mobility broker, which I mentioned. It's around 50,000 euros, but then the company is responsible for paying for the mobility options it offers. It can, of course, ask for benefits, tax benefits, as I mentioned, but the only responsible would be of the mobility broker.
Thank you.
Marco, this other question about does it need repeated action? I saw.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, how do you keep this behavior change in the long run?
Well, there's this part of monitoring the impact. Every year there's an impact assessment that is undertaken to see how the behavior evolves. So it would be interesting to go into this data to know the different trends. But what is something that is proven somehow is that once the people have the access and the chance to try these options, it makes them a percentage of them change the mobility behavior, and that's the positive part.
Maria José, Polis is an Europe-wide network, and you have a large membership and access to many good practices. Have you seen other good practices that is targeting commuters elsewhere, or are these still missing and should be much more encouraged?
There are some, for example, Ile-de-France signed a charter also to improve commuter behavior. There are some initiatives, but it's true that I think it's an area that has to be further explored and further pushed. So, and I think, as I said in the presentation, it's a very good timing, because also, as Rose mentioned, there are many patterns changing in commuting behavior, and many of these have really potential to transform commuting behavior to more sustainable habits. So it's a topic to further elaborate.
Thank you very much. Good. So I would like to introduce our final speaker, also joining us from Brussels, Tom Geens, who's the head of education team at ProVelo. And here he is. I found him because on my way to work, I pass the esplanade of the European Parliament every day. Sometimes I go late. It's like a safe, flat space, and I see that there are people, women, elderly people, colored, migrant background, starting to learn to cycle. So I got curious to see what you're doing. So please explain us all about that.
Okay, yes. I'm Tom Geens. I'm the head of the education team, as already said. And first I want to start to explain you who ProVelo is and what we do. ProVelo is a big organization in Belgium. We have about 100 employees, so it's not a small NGO. And we don't only offer education, but also a lot of other services to cyclists. Our main goal is to encourage people to make the transition to cycling. So we offer events, bike rentings, bike leasing solutions for enterprises, bike repairs, everything that facilitates the transition to the bike. If you want to know more about this, or activities or organization, our annual report is in the handouts. It's only in French or Dutch, but the figures speak for itself, I think. Then training for beginners. The first question is, what is a beginner? And normally when we ask that question, people say that are people who cannot ride a bicycle, who never have ridden a bicycle. But we find it very important to add another category, that is people who cannot launch themselves into traffic without endangering themselves. Because to make the transition to cycling, it's not only important to be able to cycle, but also cycle in traffic. So we offer sorts of trainings. The first training is, it's in French, the name is the mise en selle. It's teaching for beginners, the real beginners. So teaching understanding how the bike works, acquire the dynamic balance, learning to pedal, and to improve the controls and perfect skills that acquired for riding a bike. And then the second training is for people who can already ride in a safe environment, but are still too afraid or not able to ride on the road. So we learn them first notions of the highway code and the position on the road. What we prove also important is that they can read a map or use apps to create a route to work or to school or anything, and we initiate avec them the first group ride on the road. Then we have one very particular project, that's the Via Velo, and that's the project that Katharina was speaking of. It's a project for a target group who's harder to reach, and therefore we work together with the Brussels associations that are active in emancipation, integration, health or mobility. So we can reach with them the most vulnerable adults who are much harder to reach. Together with these associations, we let them taste the freedom of the bicycle. This project is partly subsidized by the Brussels region, and that makes the training price accessible to all. The training, there are two possibilities, and we see again those two trainings we created. It's the mise en selle. It's for the real beginners, and it's 6 training periods, 6 training sessions of 2.5 hours. The roue libre is for groups who can already ride, and it's not unusual that people who participate in the first group rejoin the other group afterwards. And that's 4 training sessions of 2.5 hours, and that's in traffic. If we, some figures of that, the Via Velo, we do 16 groups. It's not a lot, but 16 groups of 15 participants a year. If we look, it's about 200 participants a year who are doing the mise en scène in their training their bike skills. It's very important also for someone to have a little idea what's the cost of learning people how to cycle. So I've added the budget for this. Here is a budget for 9 groups mise en scène, and when we look a little bit, we see that it's for one group, the cost for one group, including the rent of the bikes, because these people don't own bikes of their own, and an event, a little gift afterwards to reward and encourage these participants to ride. We have a cost of 3,000 euros per group. Here it's very important. Associations only pay 400 euros for a training. The rest is paid by Brussels region, so it's accessible to all. And then after the training, the main question is, why do these people want to learn to ride a bike? And then the answers are different. The main answer is independence. Katharina already said that there are a lot of women that participate, migrant women, and independence for them is very important, because some of these women don't have a driver's license, and so they are able to do their proper transport. They're independent from their husband. Health reasons is one. Be able to cycle with their children, and then a big reason the last years is no longer to have to take the public transport, and that's due to the attacks we had on the metro in Brussels, and also now due to COVID, we see that a lot of people want to learn to ride a bicycle for these reasons. The rest are sporting goals or people who are just fed up with traffic jams. Do these people continue to ride after these trainings? Yes, more than 90% of the participants want to continue cycling with a bicycle as means of a transport. So it's very important. But a lot of times the purchase of a bicycle is often an obstacle, and therefore therefore we are creating now for 2021 a new project that's called the social bicycle leasing. So in cooperation with the Brussels region and all the a lot of cycling organizations in Brussels, we are donating 400 recycled bicycles at the Brussels associations. We give trainings, cycling in traffic and bicycle maintenance to the participants. And after 1 year of testing the bike, the participants can buy their proper bicycle for a small amount. We fixed now an amount of 25 euros, which is very accessible. So I'm done with my presentation. If there are any questions, I will be glad to hear them.
Thank you, Tom. Yeah, I mean, this is an amazing, good practice, and I think it shows how the public body, which is here, the Brussels Region Authority, can leverage the power of NGOs, or let's say civil society organizations, by sponsoring them and letting them do the good stuff to actually change the behavior. And your work is not just of education, but it has an aspect of inclusion and kind of bringing, let's say, less integrated groups better into the mainstream as well.
Yes, yes, because it's a tradition in Belgium to ride a bike, and not anyone is able to do it. So we try to reach everyone with this project.
This is true. Well, and actually, it's a fact that there's a gender gap in cycling, and not just among your target population, but in general, and even not just in the southern countries. We have here data from Ireland, and you will find a video link in the chat that shows that already at secondary level at schools, girls cycle less than boys, and I mean, I was very surprised to discover their apprehension and their reasons for not daring to cycle. So I think this is a point that should be well kept in mind, that there might be also a gender aspect to it.
Yeah, we see it a lot also in the trainings we offer on Saturdays. We see nine of the 10 participants are women. So it's a figure that speaks for itself, I think.
It does. It does. Marco, do we have any questions to Tom?
Yeah, we have a very interesting one coming from Tommy Pennanen, who's asking if your training has kind of intercepted these food delivery guys. We have a lot of them in Brussels, and so maybe you have offered them to them as well.
We are now, we've created with another association in Brussels who really works for cargo bikes and delivery guys. We are creating a new training for the delivery guys. Yes, it's a project that's in the pipeline for 2021 also.
Perfect.
Because we see often that they can ride a bicycle, but in traffic that's not always the good way.
Okay, I see another question. What do you mean by when you say you recycle bikes? Actually, I think you work with the associations which repair them and then provide them, right?
So Cyclo, you've seen the two logos of Cyclo and Voto. There are associations who work with mechanics that repair bikes and that recycle bikes who were stolen and not claimed, bikes who were found, bikes who were donated by people, old bikes who were donated, and they're recycling them into bikes who are road ready.
Yes, and this is where this also joins the employment creation aspect. Actually,
it's social employment also.
Their shops, they are totally full.
Yeah.
The only shops which are opening under COVID, everything is closing down. But have you seen downtown in front of the European Commission, 1,000 square meter new, brand new bike shop is opening?
Yeah, but it's booming. There we have a big problem in Belgium for the moment that there are no longer bikes available in the bike shops. So it's booming. But it's a good thing also.
Good. So I would like to open the floor to the entire set of speakers. Please turn all on your camera, and so that we can spend the next 20 minutes discussing jointly. And I would like to kick off our discussion by asking all to the audience. We have said which groups are the easiest to motivate. Now, which target groups are the ones that provide the biggest impact in the short term, like a policymaker that is seeking impact within 2 years? Which of these groups should they go for? Again, the same groups, and you can select one of the following. Because kids might take a long time before they come out of school, but okay, maybe they have the long-lasting impact. But let's see, how many do we have? 50% voted. We had roughly 200 people online. Okay, let's cut this now to see. Rose, what do you think?
Okay, that's very, very interesting. So by a landslide majority, commuters and working adults are where we think we can have the biggest impact in the short term, which is really, really interesting because there's not as many good practices relating to commuters and working adults. But I think it's important for everybody when we're looking at what we can do for sustainable transport to choose the area or the sector where we can have the most influence in the short term. You know, where you can see real tangible success and big numbers, because success breeds success. And once you get one sustainable action undertaken with a good result, you know, that motivates everyone to start looking further afield and to take on
Have you muted yourself?
other projects. It's really, really an interesting outcome. Now I know there's the numbers between the school children, you know, when you take both the junior level and the senior level are quite high. But I think, you know, commuters and working adults is definitely an area that we need to be given more attention to, I think, across the European Union, to see what we can do there.
What do the other speakers think about focusing more on commuters? Maybe before you answer, Goran Lepen is telling us through the chat that the European Cyclist Federation is offering a cycle-friendly employer certification scheme in 16 countries, but only over 200 employers certified. That might seem much, but I think it's by far not enough. So just take the floor. Don't wait for me to give it to you.
Well, sorry.
Okay, no, it's okay.
No, just to mention that really interesting the question as well, and the results as well. I think, of course, we must not forget the long term, and in that case, for example, the children are key. But it's true that if we want to have immediate, almost or very short-term results, commuters, I think, are a key target group. So, for example, in this practice that I just presented, one of the diagnoses was that over 50% of commuters travel up to 15 kilometers by car each day. So that's a trip that can be done by bicycle, for example, or in other means. And if we take into consideration as well the rise in the sales of e-bikes, so it's a very good moment to make this shift right now. So I think I agree with the audience. Thank you.
Yeah,
yes,
and also just a thing. The pandemic has put us in a moment in which many cities are doing a lot of infrastructure. So the easy way to put people in this infrastructure is also by commuters, because of school kids are obviously medium and long term work that have to be done in parallel. So let's work for commuters by now, but for children, when they became commuters, they will able easily to use bike in the future.
Commuters are actually as well the main target group for us over here in the canton of Zurich. But the main problem I see is, as I already said, fewer and fewer children are riding a bike or even having a bicycle, especially in the cities around Zurich, the big cities. Some of parents say, oh no, it's too dangerous, I won't buy a bicycle to my child. And the police officers, some of them already told me, you need to know, I go to a class, and if you have 25 students or 25 kids, I have to leave 3 at the classroom. And this amount of people not going with the police officer is unfortunately growing, unfortunately.
So this proves that you need all the measures and they tie into each other. Of course, it is difficult to activate a commuter to start cycling if he or she has never learned how to cycle as a kid. Then we have to send him to Tom's classes for adults, and that's, yeah, hard. Okay.
I just want to edit that is, we target all those groups that are so we give trainings for all those groups, and we see last years the trainings for enterprise to reach the commuters are the demand for it are enormous. This year it's less because of the COVID, and we are not able to give the lessons in the enterprise, only by webinar. But 2019 we had a record of demands for trainings in the corporations and in the enterprises in Brussels.
Wow, that's interesting to hear. Well, government incentives have for decades favored the car and kind of even pushed employers to offer a car as a non-tax salary incentive. So I think it's time also to look at those fiscal alleviations for cars and phase them out and phase them in for bikes. We have a question from the floor. What about shopping by bike? Do the speakers have experience with solutions to motivate people to shop by bike? Who wants to take that question? Tom, aren't you also doing
yes, starting it, so I don't know it for the moment. We're starting a cargo project in April 2001. Testing for cargo bikes in all of the how do you say it, all of the parts of Brussels, the 19 villages of Brussels. We are doing testing sessions for 16 participants per district in Brussels. Yes, I don't know it for now. We've never targeted it before. It's new for us.
We just started our work on that on behalf of that topic, and one of the big findings is that the shopping centers over here in Switzerland, if you would like to go there by bike, you have to park your bike on the back side of the shop. And if you're going there by car, you drive down in the garage, you take the elevator, and then you are in the shopping mall. Yeah, and we also created some fact sheets for several places, which are shopping malls, open facilities such as sport clubs and other things, for the reason the management of these companies know how to handle the cycling storage actually. And yeah, we are working on that. I saw several studies as well, international ones, but we are not ready yet.
We will have an option in the survey when we close this webinar for participants to say if they want to have a webinar that is focusing on cargo bikes and all these as last mile, also thinking about logistics. So we can search more good practices on that. Martin Howie from Dublin wants to know how to support people with disabilities to cycle more. Now, I think Rose can maybe take that question. It's very vague.
Yeah, I suppose it covers quite a broad breadth of disabilities. So that's a very wide open question. I suppose while I'm formulating my answer, it would be interesting if any of the participants on the webinar today have any ideas of good practice or experience of where we've managed to provide support for people with disabilities to cycle more, and you can put that into the chat. I suppose thinking about it, one of the things that I had noticed recently was the use of hand bikes. And in particular, there's a German company called Striker who are providing these hand bikes, and they have a reseller network across Europe, and even have one in Ireland here. But basically what they're doing is they're providing the hand bikes to them. They do cost about 3,000 if they're completely manual operated, and then depending on the specifications that are required for the user, if they need some electric propulsion, that cost can go from 3,000 to 5,000. But what we've also discovered is that some of, in particular, Cork Local Sports Partnership here in Ireland have purchased some of these handbikes, and they make these handbikes available to people for a period, and they loan them to them free of charge, so that they can have like a 3-month period whereby they can use them, get used to it, see if this is something that would benefit them. But I certainly think my feel from looking at it is that the handbikes certainly give a whole new level of independence to users who otherwise would be dependent for their transport either on a private car or somebody else actually assisting them, whereas these handbikes make them completely independent. They can link a wheelchair up to it, and off they go. So I do think that's a great idea. I think also in Ireland recently they increased the actual bike to work scheme, the actual upper end of the threshold, from 1,250 to 1,500 euros per person. Now, I do think that helps people towards the cost, but maybe it's something that we need to look at. These handbikes are much more expensive, and if we have people that are going to use them to commute to work or whatever, is that something that we could certainly look at? And I suppose one of the other areas that I found interesting, and it's only an article I saw recently, if we do go down the route of these handbikes, basically you have to then provide suitable parking for them, and the normal bike parking spaces won't accommodate handbikes. And I've just seen recently whereby Trinity College in Dublin, Trinity University in Dublin, have actually started to install bike parking spaces for disabled cyclists. And that's the first time we've had some disabled parking for bicycles in Ireland, and certainly something that we should be encouraged to be rolled out. I mean, in overall terms, you know, I definitely think we can be doing more to support disabled cyclists. We have to make it easier for them, we have to make it safer, and we also have to try and make it convenient for them. But I don't think I have all the answers, but I certainly think it's a topic that we need to continue talking about, and it'd be very interesting to see if any good practices or any ideas have been put into the text in relation to the comment.
Some have, yes. But Marco, let's take another question from the audience maybe.
Yeah, I have one for Maria José, very interesting, on what companies can do to actually incentivize behavioral change towards cycling. Like, do you think that showers, the presence of showers, changing rooms, these kind of things are important elements that can induce change, or they are an extra?
Well, I think it depends. I think cycling commuters have specific needs. And for example, it depends also, as mentioned before during the webinar, in the weather of where these measures are applied. For example, in areas here in the south of Europe that are quite hot, it might be really very important in certain moments of the year to have showers if you want to really commute daily to work. By bike. So I think there are many measures, and it needs like a tailored approach to see what the company and in terms of the location needs. That's why I think it's good to have a wide array of measures, and then based on that select which are the most suitable for that company. But yes, the measures can range, as you said, specific facilities in the workplaces, but also, well, it depends on if the employee lives very far away, maybe it can be a bike you can fold and you can take to public transport, and then so there are really many cases.
Sure.
But indeed, I think that kind of facilities can be really helpful.
I think a first decision for an employer is to not offer a car as part of the salary package. I mean, I have been an employer, and systematically, well, it was clear from the beginning that this would not be part of our company policy. There's, of course, no car as a salary package. However, there's subsidized public transport for the year, or even a bike for the employee. Yeah. So I think this is a first major choice, and then come all the others. Marco, another question from the audience?
Yeah, maybe one for Tom. There are people asking about whether or not you have any cultural challenge when you do the training.
Excuse me, I've not heard everything.
No worries. We have from the audience a question concerning any difficulties when related to the presence of cultural barriers when you do the training.
Mostly we don't experience that. No, it's very organic, and no, we don't have much problems with it.
All right, cool. Yeah, and maybe I have Katharina one for us concerning what the Interreg policy learning platform can offer to support cities in designing better cycling policies. That's very interesting.
Well, beyond these webinars, which are knowledge sharing activities and the publications that we make, we have services that are more individualized, and I think probably if a city would ask support in improving its, I don't know, cycling policy or mobility policy, I could recommend definitely the peer reviews, because the peer reviews is like an individualized service that is available to any city or region. And the applicant can ask one or two specific policy-related questions, like, for instance, I'm a region and I want to support my municipalities so that they do not reinvent the wheel in designing their mobility strategies, for instance. The peer review then consists of 2 days of a very well prepared, fully moderated by myself exchange between the host and 4 to 5 peers that would work in other administrations that have the relevant experiences, and we have the possibility to go much more in depth and to have this type of a discussion to a very different level during 2 days. Right now we offer them online because of course we can't travel, and I was very skeptical about it at first because I thought it really works only in a face-to-face environment, but it works actually surprisingly well online, even with simultaneous interpretation where that is needed. And I'm enthusiastic about it. The peers and the hosts have all been really saying, wow, we did not imagine that an online peer review would give us such a good feeling of even becoming a team and becoming friends over 2 days. And I've done 4 online peer reviews and they all were very good. Also, I mean, they can be done now, and in this year nobody can meet probably internationally. So if you do not want to lose 1 year of no meeting, then an online peer review can be very well, because that's an exchange that is organized exactly for you. So I can only recommend them. I think they're very good tools, and they're free for the host organization. All they have to provide is the time of their staff. And online, of course, there are no costs. And the Interreg program is actually sponsoring a follow-up meeting once we can travel again between the host and the peers, where travel and accommodation will be paid. So yeah, that's, I think, what comes to mind. Otherwise, if it's an easy request, send us an email and we will give you a 2-page answer. Another question?
Yes, the audience is asking if the panelists know about good practices offering a training to car drivers to improve cyclist safety. Anyone?
I don't know any.
I don't think we in Ireland have any specific training of that nature. I think it falls under our original training for when people pass their driving test, and it's a part of that. I don't, but I suppose it's, how long ago is it since somebody did their driving test, and you know, is there some refresher course that should be done to ensure that. I thought there was a very interesting article recently, and I think can't think now of the car make. Can't think of the car make, but there is recently, I remember seeing, whereby there's some technology now being put into cars at the blind spot in a car. They will get a sensor that will actually beep when a cyclist comes up to the side, up at the side of them. So I think technology will probably help, but I suppose there's no accounting for people's bad or poor driving, unfortunately, at the moment.
Good. All right. I think it's time to come to our last round of statements. I would like to ask each of the speakers to make a short statement and say what is the main point that you take away from today's webinar. So let's go in the order of appearance, and Rose will make the final comment. So we start with Albert.
Wow. I think that it's very important to work in short term with commuters, but not forget to work in the medium and long term with children.
Yes, great. Okay, Steve?
We keep as well focused on commuters, and over here in Switzerland, the main target is to improve the infrastructure. And if we have an infrastructure, moms and dads will tell their kids, let's go for a bike ride, and like that, all people are cycling. That's what we hope.
Good. Maria José?
I would say all target groups are very important. We have to look at each of them, and all measures are interlinked, as we said. So I would say this is a very relevant topic, and the time is now to foster this kind of policies to support sustainable commuting behaviors.
Thank you. Tom?
I want to rejoin my colleagues on that all groups are important, and I want to just what I said already in my presentation is that a beginner is not someone who has to learn to ride, but also someone has to learn to ride in traffic. So when we do cycle training, it's important not only to learn people how to ride a bicycle, but also how to behave in traffic, how to be confident in traffic.
Good. Rose?
I suppose my takeaway from today is that everyone needs to remember that each potential cyclist is motivated differently, and to make sure that when we are creating campaigns to raise awareness or to encourage or motivate people to change their behaviours, to not necessarily always try and motivate them with save the planet and sustainable travel. Sometimes it just needs to be fun. Sometimes it needs to be cost effective from an employer's point of view. Sometimes it needs to be healthier, and sometimes it needs to be another outlet for social inclusion. So if you're looking at the elderly sector, sometimes that may be their way of meeting people. So, you know, to just bear it in mind that when we're doing all these things, we know we're trying to encourage sustainable transport. We know we're trying to reduce emissions, but you have to really tailor what you're going to do to meet the motivations of the target group that you're seeking to change the behavior of. So that's my takeaway from today.
Thank you all for these final statements. I think again you've touched upon all the ingredients to turning a city into a cycling city, and this is the end of a series of 3 webinars. We have made the emphasis of the strategy, the inclusion into the regional or the local SUMP. We have focused on infrastructure. Steve said it just again, if the infrastructure is there, it's super enabling and people will come and enjoy it. It needs to be friendly, safe. And then the behavior change measures that we've looked at today. So all these three ingredients belong together. And so a mobility policymaker can fill its entire agenda with only measures to support cycling. And I hope that we've provided a whole lot of inspiration. You know that you can join our speakers and the presenters and the owners of the good practice. If you want to have a particular connection to any of them, write us and we are happy to establish the connection. There are also questions from the floor that we have not been able to take because maybe they were too specific or due to time. Fewer today than last time. We will forward them exactly to the speakers and make sure that they will be answered. So I think a lot of food for thought. And so a warm thank you to all the speakers for your time and for your valuable contributions. To you, to my co-moderator Rose for sharing her host of experience on behavior change measures. And last but not least, to my colleagues Marco and Lotte in the background, who's making sure that technology runs smooth and we see the questions that come through. And to the audience, a final thank you for watching us, staying with us until the end. If you want to have more webinars or activities on cycling, write to us, and I have put 2 questions in the follow-up survey that pops out when the webinar closes. Take them and tell us if you want to have a webinar on one of these 2 topics proposed, or write another suggestion so that we can cater for your interest. It's time to close. It's 15:31. We have never been so well on time. Thank you very much for all your discipline, and I hope that you have enjoyed it. I have a lot, and I wish everybody an excellent afternoon.
Bye, everybody. Take care.
Bye. Bye.
Thanks a lot. Goodbye.
Bye. Thank you.